From the Met Office. It is going to be relatively warm, not as hot as it has been, but warm and sunny at times through much of this weekend, though there will be some rain pushing through. Initially, we have a front making its way southeastwards through this evening and overnight. That's already brought quite a bit of rain across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but it's now clearing these areas, and so here it is going to turn mostly dry overnight with some clear skies. For England and Wales, though, turning increasingly cloudy, and there will be some outbreaks of rain around. Where we have the cloud, temperatures aren't going to drop much. Another warm night to come, but quite a bit fresher across Scotland and Northern Ireland, dropping into single figures, particularly in more rural spots. But first thing tomorrow, across many parts of England and Wales, it is going to be a bit grey initially. There will be some outbreaks of rain around, and worth bearing in mind, some of the rain could be a little bit heavy at times. A bit brighter first thing across North Wales and much of northern England, though some cloud here and there. A brighter start for Scotland and Northern Ireland, just a couple of showers starting to feed their way in from the west as we go through the morning. Eastern Scotland getting off to a lovely fine start to the day with plenty of sunshine here. Those showers, though, across western parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland will become more widespread here as we go through the afternoon, and some heavy ones are quite likely. Meanwhile, across the southern southeastern parts of England, here we will have some bursts of rain through the day, and these could be heavy at times before they clear away later. Elsewhere, a good deal of dry, bright and sunny weather, and with temperatures albeit not as high as they have been, getting into the mid-20s, it will feel warm in any sunshine. Sunday should get off to a fairly fine start, albeit a fresher start than of late for many of us, before some wetter weather starts to push its way in from the northwest, and this is likely to bring some heavy rain as we go into the beginning of next week, so do watch out for some high rainfall totals, particularly across northern and western parts. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good evening, I'm Johnny Ratner. Problems on Merseyside at Moreton Hoy Lake Road. So the A553, of course, that's been closed at the scene of an accident. On the M1 in Northamptonshire, 2 lanes are closed southbound on that 4-lane stretch. Junction 15A to 15 near Northampton, just off the A45. There's been a collision involving at least 2 cars in the 2 left lanes. And the M5 in Worcestershire is down to a single lane northbound just after the M50, following an accident. Long queues back to Tewkesbury at Junction 9 and on the A46 en route through Ashchurch and Aston Cross as you divert. Long delays on the Hertfordshire stretch of the M25. Clockwise, the 2 inside lanes shut. At 25, a crane broke down at the A10 exit, causing long queues back past Potters Bar, not being helped by the roadworks on that stretch. And in Hampshire on the M3 southbound, a lane shut at Junction 11 heading south near Winchester. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Celebrate a spectacular summer with your chance to win an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash in our Great British Giveaway. It's the biggest prize of the year so far, and it's totally tax-free. What would you spend that on? Luxury holidays, a new car, or just put it away for a rainy day? Whatever you do with £30,000 in tax-free cash, make sure you don't miss out on the chance to make it yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2, or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets and My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christys. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
she could have said Storm.
You made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christys tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. Tonight, I shall be joined on the show by the former political editor to the Sun newspaper, that's Trevor Kavanagh. We've also got former Labour MP Stephen Pound, former Conservative MP Jerry Hayes, an American comedian called Lewis Schaefer, and former glamour model Nicola McLean. But first, let's go to the news.
A very good evening to you. You're with GB News. I'm Sam Francis. Back to Lee in just a few short moments. First, though, the headlines at just after 7 o'clock. The Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, has announced a package of support for Southport following Monday's knife attack that killed 3 young girls. During his second visit this week, Sir Keir Starmer praised the town's resilience and announced a mental health support package to bolster local cohesion. He's also met with emergency services there and visited Alder Hey Children's Hospital, where many of the victims of the attack were treated. The Prime Minister praised the hospital staff for their brave and professional response to the attack. Well, Southport has seen violent unrest due to false claims about the attacker's identity that was spread on social media, with concerns of further violence in the Liverpool City region over the weekend. Sir Keir Starmer's condemned hatred on the streets, calling now for a national response to the disorder. Robert Jenrick claims the Conservatives lost the general election in July because of a broken promise on immigration. The former immigration minister was speaking at the launch of his campaign to become leader and to succeed Rishi Sunak. Mr Jenrick also claimed the British political system has appeared either unwilling or unable, he says, to secure the UK's borders.
Broke our promise to the British public to deliver controlled and reduced migration and the secure border that the public rightly demand. We allowed the cycle of broken promises to continue. And as a minister, when I concluded that I couldn't secure any more changes to our legal migration system, I resigned from Cabinet last year.
A mural of former newsreader Hugh Edwards in his home village of Carmarthenshire has been removed today. The artwork has now been painted over, while institutions including Bangor and Cardiff universities are reviewing their ties with the ex-BBC presenter. That's after he admitted to accessing indecent images of children. The Culture Secretary, Lisa Nandy, is calling on the BBC to reclaim the £200,000 in salary that Mr Edwards received between his arrest in November and his resignation in April this year. Prisoners who've been released as part of an exchange between Russia and the West have spoken of their burden, that others are still in jail. It was the biggest exchange of prisoners since the Cold War and included dual Russian citizen Vladimir Kara-Murza. He was detained following opposition to the invasion of Ukraine. In exchange, 8 Russian prisoners were freed, including an assassin who was serving life in Germany. We've heard tonight that 96 migrants are suing the UK government, claiming that they were badly treated at the Manston Processing Centre in Kent. Their lawyers claim the group were unlawfully detained between September and November of 2022. Allegations also include lack of access to hygiene products, forced removal of hijabs and reportedly inadequate conditions for children and pregnant women. The Home Office hasn't yet filed a defence. And finally, some good news. It's from the Paris Games. Team GB have won another 3 gold medals on day 7 of the Paris Games. It takes the tally so far to 9. The wins came in the equestrian team jumping final, on the trampoline and in the water in the women's lightweight doubles sculls race. And there's further medal hopes tonight as well, with BMX rider Bethany Shriver and swimmers Ben Proud, Duncan Scott and Tom Dean among those pushing for a spot on the podium.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome to Lee Anderson's Real World. I'm the Reform UK Member of Parliament for Ashfield, and tonight joining me on the show for the second time is Trevor Kavanagh, the former political editor for The Sun, and he's back, Stephen Pound. Two furious pensioners that just had their winter fuel payment robbed off them by Sir Keir Starmer. But Stephen, seriously, this week we've seen some rather nasty, for the past 2 weeks, should I say, some nasty incidents around the country, and the police have come in for some support and a lot of flack as well. What's happening with policing in our country?
The very easy thing to do is to talk about the hot weather and hooliganism. But I think what we have to do, and I think all of us in the establishment, actually look ourselves in the mirror and say, what is it about this country at the present time that has actually provided a tinderbox where one spark can set off this sort of response up and down the country? We can talk about policing, by all means. We can talk about the policing losing control of the streets, being a riot squad instead of a detective force. We can talk about that till the cows come home. But the real underlying issue here is, what is it about our country at the moment that has a vast millions of people completely disaffected who are prepared to come out on the streets at the drop of a hat and cause absolute, utter mayhem? We need to do some soul searching. You do in Parliament, if you don't mind me saying.
Well, Stephen says, what is it, Trevor? What is it?
Well, in 2 words, it's multiculturalism, which is badly managed and has been allowed to run out of control with mass immigration and the attempt to force many cultures to meld together in a melting pot, and that has been an abject failure. And we're going to be paying not just the price now, but for a long time in the future.
Multiculturalism, Stephen. It talks about a melting pot, does Trevor? I don't think there is a melting pot in this country because we're not coming together.
I disagree to a certain extent. Look, if you want to see how multiculturalism doesn't work, if you want to see where there really is blood on the streets, look at France, look at Paris, look at the banlieue, look at what happens there, where you have ghetto communities. We in this country actually have a pretty damn proud tradition, going back to the Huguenots, the Irish people coming over here in the 50s and the 60s. We have actually integrated. There is an issue with some of the communities who've moved in recently, who for various reasons, before we had the English language test for citizenship, actually did live in closed communities. I hope we've moved on from that. But this isn't, with due respect to Trevor, I don't think this is just about multiculturalism.
Well, I'm going to come back to Trevor because he talks about France, and it is horrific sometimes over there in Paris. We've seen the scenes there, but isn't that creeping into this country, Trevor?
Well, it's the same thing. Multiculturalism hasn't worked across the whole of Europe, and Stephen talks about the success, which is correct, of our melding of populations up until the 1950s and 60s. Yeah. But this all broke loose in the 1980s under Tony Blair's government when he opened the doors. And I think that even Tony Blair now admits that it was not properly handled. And I think when you're trying to put together very large numbers of people, I mean millions of people coming in over a short period of time, 20 years, and trying to make them assimilate, without having the facilities in terms of
But we're not trying, though, Trevor, are we? We're not trying. We just let people in and say, get on with it.
Well, exactly. This is where the failure lies. I mean, schools are the biggest victims of this, and also the place where, if there were to be a melding of populations, that's where it would begin. But teachers do not have the opportunity, and perhaps not even the will, to try to keep any sort of discipline in the classrooms. For instance, Catherine Birbalsingh, who runs an excellent school where mixed race and mixed culture pupils are working together because she insists on having parameters which the children themselves actually enjoy, and they like the success of the school. People of different religions are actually succeeding in that environment, and it's the only school in Britain probably that's doing that.
Stephen, I said at the beginning of the clip that our police come in for a lot of flack, and they've had a lot of support as well. But they're on the front line, and I always say that it's not the police officers on the front line who's taking the bricks and the bottles and the abuse and all this nastiness that goes off. It's the bosses, And it's those people over there in Parliament who are instructing the police how to police our streets. Is it time to get tougher?
Well, you make a good point, Lee. Every day you walk past the memorial to PC Keith Palmer.
I do.
Who was slaughtered in the carriageway into the House of Commons there by an extremist. A police officer who gave his life. You can see Yvonne Fletcher's memorial up the road. Again, the police officers have very often not just been the thin blue line, but they've actually been the dead line. They're the people who've actually given everything. Whether this comes from the top or not, I don't know. All I can say is there has to be a different sort of Home Office direction for the police in two areas. One is we've got to actually start detecting crime. We've actually got to do something about shoplifting. But above all, we've got to concentrate. I think it was Lee Anderson who said, well, I'm a bit fed up with the police dancing around rainbow flags.
It was me, yeah.
Yeah, you know, you do get quoted fairly frequently. I think there's a fair point about that, but that isn't the totality of it. We have laws in this country which are quite rightly brought in to protect the innocent, which maybe are not having...
Well, let's talk about laws in this country, shall we, Stephen? Well, we've seen another case in the news this week. Hugh Edwards, he was up in court this week. He's pleaded guilty for receiving some sexual images of children. You're the former political editor of The Sun. You had something to say about this when it first happened.
Yes, this happened. This first broke a year ago when The Sun ran the story about Hugh Edwards' relationship with a young person where money was changing hands and photographs or images were being exchanged too. The parents of this youngster went to the BBC to complain, or at least to register the point, and they were ignored. So they came to The Sun, and The Sun, to its enormous credit, ran the story despite the huge uproar by outraged supporters of Hugh Edwards and the BBC, and to my amazement by our own former editor David Yelland, who I think probably will now be big enough to offer an apology. The simple fact is that newspapers are there to expose those who are doing wrong, especially those in high places, and especially people who are basically a sainted representative of the BBC, which has a terrible track record for dealing with these sort of complaints.
Oh, terrible track record, Stephen. I mean, look who's been lurking around in the corridors of the BBC over the past 30 or 40 years. Gary Glitter, we've got Jimmy Savile, we've got Stuart Hall, Rolf Harris. The list goes on.
There's a back history. Look, I'd come to this at a slightly different angle. I think quite clearly the BBC, on the one hand, was claiming to have a duty of care to one of its own staff. On the other hand, whether they had a duty of care to the children is another more important
duty of care, all right, Steve. I think he got a 40 grand pay rise while they're having his duty of care for him.
When I think about this, these Category A pictures, this is the most revolting, disgusting stuff you could imagine. And in a week where we've seen what happens when we lose our young children, when we actually realise how priceless and precious childhood is, we should actually be working with Hugh Edwards and say, look, we want all the information, we want the trails, the audit trail, we want the names. Let some good come out of this. But let's not just concentrate on the BBC and Hugh Edwards. Let's think about the victims here. The victims of the young children who were coerced, bullied, beaten, who knows what, into producing this filth for perverts who frankly don't deserve the right to breathe this air.
No, I think there's strong words there, Trevor.
Well, he's absolutely right. And if it weren't for people like Hugh Edwards, the trade wouldn't flourish. And children are being tortured, and this is a form of slavery. It's a bestial act, and it is something that when a person of his stature is caught red-handed in possession of these sort of things, he should be made an example of, or at least pursued in the way that any other person in the country would be. And I think this is where the BBC fails. It allows its star performers to more or less get away with behaviour which is widely known, actually.
But why, Trevor?
This is very difficult to understand because, I mean, in the case of Rolf Harris and Jimmy Savile, the stories about both of them were circulating very widely, way beyond the actual environment of the BBC. People who had no knowledge of Jimmy Savile were certainly aware of his reputation, and yet the BBC put up with this for years. It is astonishing how fame in itself allows you basically to get away with almost murder.
Is that true, Stephen? Fame allows you to get away with practically anything.
I think we can talk about these cases individually. I mean, Jimmy Savile was invited to Chequers by Margaret Thatcher. She supported him. She backed him for his own. He was actually given a papal knighthood by the Holy Father. He was a man who was in a very, very unique and very strong position. Fame is a factor. Fame does actually surround you with a safety net sometimes. And there are people like that, you know, when John Peel, all the stuff came out after he had passed. And apparently people all knew about that at the time. What we need to do is, and I think, let's say fair play to papers like The Sun and organisations like yours today. we need to actually realise that sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Yeah.
We've actually got to shine a light on these perverts and actually bring them out, not let them get away just because they happen to have a BBC press pass or they...
Well, Stephen talks about shining a light on perverts, but what about the people that actually defended these perverts, you know, back in the day? And more recently, I come in for a lot of flack when I criticise the BBC. I think of people like John Sopel, who defended Hugh Edwards to the max. Surely he feels a little bit embarrassed now.
Well, it is astonishing, actually, that the BBC remains a revered institution for which we are all bound to pay a significant sum each year.
In a statement this week, a BBC spokesman said, "The BBC is shocked to hear the details which have emerged in court today. There can be no place for such abhorrent behaviour, and our thoughts are with all those affected." In November 2023, whilst Mr. Edwards was suspended, the BBC, as his employer at the time, was made aware in confidence that he had been arrested on suspicion of serious offences and released on bail while the police continued their investigation. At the time, no charges had been brought against Mr. Edwards, and the BBC had also been made aware of significant risks to his health. If at any point during the period Mr. Edwards was employed by the BBC, he had been charged, the BBC had determined it would act immediately to dismiss him. In the end, at the point of charge, he was no longer an employee of the BBC. We want to reiterate our shock at Mr. Edwards' actions, and our thoughts remain with all those affected.
Brilliant start to the show with our left in the corner, Stephen Pound, and then former political editor of The Sun, Trevor Kavanagh. But coming up next, we're going back in the day with comedian Lewis Schaefer.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m, followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain, followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
King Charles has launched his own aftershave, costing, wait for it, an eye-watering 135 quid for a 100 millilitre bottle, promising buyers that they can smell just like the gardens of his Highgrove country pile. Now, this is something that Meghan Markle would do, surely not the King. Is this a case of King Charles selling out, watering down the brand just like Meghan? Well, join me now to discuss this is the royal broadcaster Helena Chard. Helena, welcome to the show.
Martin,
often on this
hi.
show, we've had a pop at Meghan Markle, the Sussexers, for selling out, for flogging strawberry jam, and now the King is flogging Pong. Is this really the right royal thing to do?
Do you know what? So the joy of luxury Highgrove splash, you know, at the end of the day, Highgrove is such a special place, and the Highgrove shop sells amazing things on there. And as we know, the profit actually goes towards charity. So it's the King's Foundation, which was formed in 1986. Profits go towards educational and training, and it's all to do with this sort of sustainable world. But not to forget as well the charitable aspect and the whole ethos of the King's Foundation, and that's so important. This is not just something that's going up on the website and just being sold purely to go into someone's pocket. So I think, you know, all in all, I think everyone should have a look at the Highgrove website and see what's on for sale. I mean, there are lots of really lovely, I think pretty fairly priced products. And even more so, go and see the gardens. You know, as we know, King Charles is a keen environmentalist, and the gardens are fabulous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Lee Anderson's Real World, and joining me now is Louis Schaefer, a comedian from New York originally, Brooklyn, you told me.
Well, I was born in Brooklyn, but I was raised on Long Island. I'm like a Jerry Seinfeld Jew, or a Joan Rivers Jew. It's a Jew who's left New York, left the center of New York, then moved to the suburbs, then go back into the thing.
Why come to the UK?
Why? Because I had run out of options, and I was hoping for another group of people who. And I was misinformed. I thought you would appreciate the subtle, sophisticated humor that I have, and you don't. You know, you're very funny, but you're not funny in the way that we Americans think you're funny.
Really? So how does the UK audience take to a comedian coming from the States?
Me, not that well, but other comedians they like. Yeah. No, it's English people. You think you're the funniest people in the world. You're not funny. I mean, you are funny. Actually, I mean, this is the thing. This is what's happened to me. Is I think you're funny now.
Yeah.
I think the people you had on and
you've integrated.
I've integrated. Yeah. I used to think that the comedians were not funny, and now I think the audience is not.
So obviously, growing up in the States, you would have had comedy heroes. Who was that?
I like Don Rickles.
Oh, I love Rickles when he does the roasts.
Yes, even before the roast, I loved him before the roast. I loved Don Rickles. I loved white people screaming. Yeah. Which is why I like you. It's great I like screaming.
Screaming. Do I scream?
Well, you do. Of course, you're screaming. You're screaming because you got a right to scream.
I'm looking at the. Some of the old 50s and 60s shows from the States. I used to love Sergeant Bilko. That was one of my favourites. The Honeymooners. Was that Jackie Gleason? I think it was one. He had some great comedians then. Then, of course, Bobo, but he was British, weren't he, really?
Well, you know what the interesting thing is? You're naming people before my time, even, and I'm old.
Yeah,
I'm a pensioner, too.
Yeah.
I'm 10 years older than you are. I look amazing. But, okay. And so those are good people, really. I mean, I'm more like the more current generation, like when I started comedy, there were people like Norm Macdonald and Jerry Seinfeld, those guys.
Oh yeah.
Not that
But what about British comedians?
You know what? Some of the funniest people are British comedians because they have to face British audiences.
So we are funny. We are funny.
You can be funny.
Yeah.
Of course you're funny, but you're not universally funny. I'm nothing personal. There's no great British comedians who are around the world.
Yes.
Maybe they might go to.
So what about something like you talked about Rickles earlier on? I think the closest thing we've got to that with the roast now is Ricky Gervais.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's amazing. I didn't like him when I first got here. I've been here for 25 years. When I first got here, I just thought the guy was an idiot. Yeah. But now I really like him. I guess that's what British people do. They bring you down.
Again, you've integrated. You've accepted our values, our culture.
I have. It's like why I'm not going back to New York. I couldn't handle New York anymore. It's not a place where people can. I couldn't handle.
So that's interesting, Rich. What is the difference, from New York to living in London? What do you feel? What do you see?
Well, I think the whole world is becoming one world again. I mean, with mass immigration and all that stuff. Is there a difference? I think people put up with more here. And tolerant, yeah. I think. And I think because there's a lack of, like you're always talking about it, a lack of openness about everything. If you don't have openness, we don't know what's going on with any of these stories. You find out later that the guy's been on trial for like 5 years and you haven't heard of him because you're not allowed to talk about it. It's all this, you're not allowed to talk about stuff, which is maybe which is a key to my success, is that I talk about stuff. It's like, oh my God, the guy's actually said something. But
But actually, comedians, I mean, I do watch your show on GB News.
Yeah, Headliners, 11 o'clock.
Headliners, yeah. When I'm struggling to sleep, I put it on and nod off pretty quickly. Yeah. No, seriously, you and Leo are great. He's a good friend of mine.
We are.
Yeah, but comedians can get away with saying a lot more on TV in the guise of it being comedy.
Yes, because they have to remember that they're a comedian, and that's what I try to do. I remember that I write down before every show. I write down I'm a comedian because no one wants to hear my political beliefs about what's going on in England. They don't want to hear it, and even if half the audience or everybody was, they don't want to hear it. They just want to hear that they want to hear not something funny, but they want to keep it light.
Reading your notes earlier, it said that you gorge on raw meat and eggs. Is that correct?
That is correct, and I look amazing. And the people could be. I'm 67. oven so that people can judge. You can look at the skin, feel the skin, feel how soft the skin is.
It's soft, yeah.
Delicious.
So.
And yeah, that's what I eat. I eat raw.
It's like a low-carb diet, isn't it?
It is a low-carb. I've been doing this for about 6 years because I'm 7. I lost a bit of weight. I lost about 60 pounds.
Wow.
The old-fashioned way, which you can look, because I never tried to lose. I tried, whatever. And so I've been eating meat, and then about 2 years ago I realized I should just be eating raw meat.
Why raw?
Because it's not destroyed by cooking. A lot of the nutrients are destroyed by cooking. You should cook certain food.
You can't eat raw chicken though, can you?
No, I don't eat. You shouldn't eat chicken at all because it's not. It's eating. I got a million rules. I'm not. At the end of the day, if you want to be healthy, raw meat, and hopefully the good quality eggs, or even bad quality eggs, are better than a good quality broccoli. Yeah.
I always like to talk to people from different countries, Lewis. I think we are a very charitable and welcoming and tolerant country. How does that compare to the US?
I think you're not as charitable because you go around saying how tolerant and charitable you are. It's not nice to do that. If you just
because we're constantly told through the media and through other political parties that we're not that type of nation, are we?
And meanwhile,
that's why we say it. That's why I say it.
That's why I just pointed that out. Is that you're seething. British people are seething and angry, and that's what I like about them. I didn't see it in the beginning. I didn't see the anger, but there's tremendous anger in this country. You don't want it to get carried away, but I'm against. I mean, I like when I'm angry, and I like comedians who are angry, but I think that people need to be assuaged.
So I always read these articles about comedians. A great comedian in this country who's been dead a number of years, Tony Hancock.
Yes.
I've ever listened to him.
Yeah.
But a lot of these comedians were manic depressives. They were really miserable in real life, but when they come on the stage, they just come to light and make people laugh. Is that true?
Well, I think it's true for me. I'm gonna. This is the best. This is the best part of. I love this. You can invite. I just pay attention to me. I'm an attention seeker. I think comedians are attention seekers, and they want people to like them. I think a comedian is someone who's been beaten as a child. So it's like if you just smile, you're a little bit further away from having. Not you don't smile, but you smile. If the audience smiles, it means that you're not going to get beaten.
Yeah.
And it's like we're different than politicians. There's a saying, which I made up, which is comedians, when you're bored of comedy, you go into politics. And when you're bored of politics, you go into comedy.
Some people might say to you that a lot of the politicians are already comedians.
Well, you have to get along, but you can't say what's on your mind, where a comedian only gets paid when he says what's... A comedian has to annoy people, while a politician tries not to.
Well,
so that's...
I think the politicians are more successful in annoying people.
But so you have to be careful not to annoy somebody. Where I have to say to myself, like in this thing, I'll go home. When I see it, I'll say to myself, did I say anything that annoyed anybody?
Yeah. Listen, Lewis, that's great. That few minutes has flown by. But coming up next, we've got right versus left. We're a couple of right pensioners.
Good evening. Here's your GB News weather from the Met Office. It is going to be relatively warm, not as hot as it has been, but warm and sunny at times through much of this weekend, though there will be some rain pushing through. Initially, we have a front making its way southeastwards through this evening and overnight. That's already brought quite a bit of rain across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but it's now clearing these areas, and so here it is going to turn mostly dry overnight with some clear skies. For England and Wales, though, turning increasingly cloudy, and there will be some outbreaks of rain around. Where we have the cloud, temperatures aren't going to drop much. Another warm night to come, but quite a bit fresher across Scotland and Northern Ireland, dropping into single figures, particularly in more rural spots. But first thing tomorrow, across many parts of England and Wales, it is going to be a bit grey initially. There will be some outbreaks of rain around, and worth bearing in mind, some of the rain could be a little bit heavy at times. A bit brighter first thing across North Wales and much of northern England, though some cloud here and there. A brighter start for Scotland and Northern Ireland, just a couple of showers starting to feed their way in from the west as we go through the morning. Eastern Scotland getting off to a lovely fine start to the day with plenty of sunshine here. Those showers, though, across western parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland will become more widespread here as we go through the afternoon, and some heavy ones are quite likely. Meanwhile, across the southern southeastern parts of England, here we will have some bursts of rain through the day, and these could be heavy at times before they clear away later. Elsewhere, a good deal of dry, bright and sunny weather, and with temperatures, albeit not as high as they have been, getting into the mid-20s, it will feel warm in any sunshine. Sunday should get off to a fairly fine start, albeit a fresher start than of late for many of us, before some wetter weather starts to push its way in from the northwest, and this is likely to bring some heavy rain as we go into the beginning of next week, so do watch out for some high rainfall totals, particularly across northern and western parts. I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tune in to Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. GB News royalty with your perfect start to the weekend. Lucky us! Feisty and fearless guests.
Well, I'm a normal person, so ask me.
Honest opinions that raises more questions than a Gary Barlow tax return. And a few surprises along the way. Might be cold in this studio. That is Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan. 8 to 9 only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to Right versus Left. I've got Jerry Hayes, former Conservative MP, and Stephen Pound. He's been let out the old People's Home for the day. He is here to discuss, debate with Jerry. How are you?
Dear. There's a visitor. It's nice, Mr. Lee.
Don't you know who I am?
I knew who you were.
Oh, dear. Look, I mean, talking about pensioners, Stephen, you're a pensioner, I know.
And so am I, yeah.
There's been a theft this week, a big theft committed by that place over there, Parliament.
No, by the Labour Party.
By the Labour Party. Yeah. First 3 weeks, what they've done, they've backtracked on all these promises they've made. Yeah. They've gone into your bank account, stolen 400 quid.
So how are you going to justify this?
Hang on, I can justify it very, very easily. Look, the fact that people, even the late Queen got the winter fuel allowance is absolute nonsense. As far as I'm concerned, if I lose £200 a year and that money goes towards the NHS to make it a better service, I'm delighted.
Let me just stop you there, Stephen. Let me just stop you there. So have you been getting the winter fuel allowance?
Yes.
Did you ever give it back?
Every time. Every single time.
Wow, what a socialist.
I didn't.
What a socialist.
I didn't.
Jerry,
no.
Is it theft?
Of course it's theft, and it's a lie. Because, well, I'll tell you, look, you said, well, me and you, we can afford this, but there's a lot of pensioners who cannot. The genteel
If they're on benefits, they won't actually lose it.
Yes, but only a few are on benefits. About 800,000 are on benefits.
Well, there could be more who don't claim. Now, we should be educating people to say that they should claim their benefits.
So you tell people that they've got to choose between eating or heating when it comes to a cold snap.
That was actually a Labour line for the last 4 years.
It was. But you can't justify that, can you? If I was a Labour backbench, I'd vote against that.
Well, I'm sorry.
Disgrace. It really is
Jerry,
a disgrace.
look at the state of the national finances. Look at what's happening with the underfunding in the police, in the armed forces. Look at the underfunding at every level of this country.
Yeah, but what about
We've got to get the money from somewhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Non-DOMs. Oh, that's a good idea, because that was a Tory idea.
Well, but we're not too proud.
But Jerry, seriously, for the past 4.5 years, whilst I've been sat in that place over there, all the Labour Party have banged on about is increasing benefits for pensioners to pay the fuel bills, extra financial help to help people pay the fuel bills. And what do they do 3 weeks after being in? They slash it and they rob you.
Well, hang on a second. Who brought these in? Gordon Brown brought in the free TV licence. I'm sorry, hang on a second. And what about the Christmas bonus, a £10 Christmas bonus? Are you telling me in this day and age, in a bankrupt country, we can give every single person a tenner?
Firstly, we're not bankrupt. And secondly,
we're damn close to it,
would you
Jerry.
accept that there are a lot of poor people who are going to suffer and who are going to be worried. They haven't been given no notice whatsoever. And isn't that a disgrace?
There is one category of people who do need some help and attention. That is the people who are frankly too proud to claim benefits. Now, what you can do about that, I do not know. There are such people, and I think we should say to them, benefits, the state's not doing you a favour. This is your entitlement. You've worked all your life, you've paid taxes. You're entitled to claim those benefits.
But so you've taken it away, what they're entitled to.
No, if you're claiming benefits, you still get the winter fuel allowance.
Yeah, but
Stephen, look, you know from being a politician yourself, and Jerry knows this, when you give a particular group of people a benefit,
that's a point,
and they've had that for donkey's years, you cannot turn around and say you're not entitled to that.
Without notice, if you'd say, over a 2 or 3 year period, nothing, bang. And winter's not all that far away.
Been a bad start, Stephen, hasn't it, for the Labour Party?
No, I don't think it has. I mean,
well, everybody else does.
Yeah. Well, it's okay. That's their position. That's their choice. All I'm saying is we've now got the grown-ups are back in. We've got a responsible chance of the
grown-ups. You are joking.
Yeah, I am not joking.
As David Lammy as Foreign Secretary.
We're not talking about. We're talking about Rachel Reeves. We're talking about Rachel Reeves.
Who were the
grown-ups? The Prime Minister.
Name me some grown-ups.
Okay. The Prime Minister.
Yes.
Wes Streeting, definitely a grown-up. Lisa Nandy.
He's just given 22% to the doctors.
Yeah.
He hasn't given 22% to the doctors.
All right, 11 per year. So it's 22%.
Over 3 years.
Well, still inflation busting.
Yeah.
It's going to cost £3 billion a year.
I don't want a confrontation or a violent clash between pensioners. but seriously, I mean, we've seen all the promises before the election about keeping the winter fuel payment. Taxes aren't going to go up. Listen, and then all of a sudden they found this £20 billion black hole.
Yeah, well, I mean, they hadn't read the newspapers.
Have they not used Google?
Yes. Yeah. It's been said for years, and it was thoroughly dishonest. We are not going to raise taxes. Oh, no, and look at the books.
And they haven't read. Look, when you're in opposition and you're preparing for going to government, you have this thing called a transitional meeting. You've been to it, where you actually go to, like in my case, went to the Northern Ireland office before, and they said, look, if you come in, this is what's going to happen. But we can't tell you everything. There's no way that the Treasury actually opened the books. We didn't know what was under the bonnet until the day after the election.
Institute for Fiscal Studies.
Well, let's talk about that other grown-up up that's in the cabinet. That's Ed Miliband. Yeah. He thinks it's a good idea to give over £11 billion away to foreign countries in this crazy net zero journey.
No, it does. What Ed Miliband is saying, and I happen to support this idea, at the moment we're actually paying Sweden and South Korea to build these wind farms. I want them build British jobs for British people in this country, and I think we need to have renewable energy, and I want to see those wind farms with a Union Jack flag on it, made in this country.
It's a great slogan, but at the end of the day, you've got to tool up for it. You've got to
exactly.
Yes, but
so let's start.
That takes a long time.
Yeah. Well, it takes a long time. So is that an excuse for doing nothing, Jerry?
Well, no, but...
It's an excuse for starting now, which is what Ed Miliband is doing. We want renewable
energy. I'll tell you what Ed Miliband is doing. He's going to bankrupt the country.
No, I'm sorry. I don't want to be reliant on the Sultan of Kuwait or the Emir of somewhere or other, for our oil. I want to see the lights kept on in this country with
So why have they
energy.
cancelled the licences in the North Sea? Why have they done that?
They haven't cancelled any of them. They haven't cancelled a single licence in the North Sea. Not a single
For exploration?
Yeah,
that's true, actually.
Yeah, they haven't. Yeah. Good God, we've agreed.
Well,
wow.
Not for long.
Wow.
Not for long.
But seriously, I think, I think we're on a spot to bother, Jerry.
I think they are.
And this is not a Labour Party, is it? These policies.
And it's a majority which is built on sand. A bit like Boris Johnson's. I mean, factions in the Tory party, they're at each other's throats. You'll hear a lot from Diane Abbott. And if you think there was going to be a rebellion on, as there was with the 7 MPs, but a lot of people
didn't vote. Yeah.
But on pensioners, I don't think that's going to go through. I don't think that's going to go through.
Can I just say, there's something really significant came out there about this Labour majority built on sand. There's one thing, I'm a Labour person, but I'm also a Democrat and a citizen of this country. There was about 120 plus seats where Reform UK was second to Labour.
Yeah.
And if we ignore that at our peril. The Labour Party no longer has a natural right to vote just because we're not Conservatives. There is now a new kid on the block, and there are now different we're in pick and mix politics nowadays. It's no longer the 1, 2, 3. There's now, and I think we're looking at a realignment of politics.
Well, I hope so, because...
I don't, but I genuinely think that...
We've had it all before. The big realignment was in 1983. The SDP. The SDP were 400,000 votes behind being leader of the opposition.
I disagree with you on that, Jerry. They didn't have Nigel Farage at the helm, and there is a very
David Owen and
very angry public out there, really angry. And one thing that sort of got my goat a little bit in that place over there, Parliament, We got 4 million votes, 4.1 million votes did Reform. And the Lib Dems got 3.4 million. They got 70 odd seats. We got 5. They won't even let us have places on select committees to scrutinise the government.
Well, I heard the answer to that. That's the rules where they ought to change the rules.
Well, it's in their gift to change the rules.
Of course it is.
They can change the rules.
Of course it is.
Why is that, Stephen? Why won't the Labour Party allow us to scrutinise them on select committees? Do you think that's fair?
I personally, of course, I don't think it's fair. I don't think it's fair that actually the European Scrutiny Committee has been abolished. Now, I appreciate that was a pasture for Bill Cash to trot around in. However, as far as I'm concerned, the select committees should be representative of the parties in Parliament. Now, you're not going to give. If George Galloway had been re-elected, he wouldn't have given him a seat. But there has to be a point. If you've got 5 MPs and you've got how many? 4 million votes?
4.1 million.
Oh, sorry, mate. Yeah, but
the Tories only got about 6 million.
So, look, in all honesty, in all seriousness, that is a voice that has to be heard. And if we deny that voice, then those people are going to get angry and they're going to get even more furious. And then you see that 4.1 million will expand. So you should be on the select committee. And to be honest, I spent 22 years on select committees. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
I loved it. I
love being on the select committee. There's a real camaraderie. Everyone goes native, and we all become friends. Whatever party. That's good for Parliament.
And I was on the select committee for the last 2 or 3 years on the Home Affairs. It gave me a chance to criticise my own government and all them to account. That's a good thing,
and you learn such a lot of specialism.
You do.
Well, I was on the Broadcasting Select Committee, and the first thing we did was to vote to abolish the broadcasting of Parliament. So Roger Gale moved it.
Roger Gale.
Listen, guys, I need to take it down a notch or two. We're going to do the yes or no quiz. I think you've done this before, Jerry, haven't you?
Yes.
No.
He's got it. He's actually got it now. Stephen Pound's probably the worst ever performer on this one. I think he once got 5 out of 5. Did you, Stephen?
No, I got 5 out of 5 wrong.
First question, you got that wrong. Right, let's go to you first, Stephen. Hands on the buzzers.
Yeah.
Do we have 2-tier policing in the UK?
Yes.
Yes.
Should our police force be armed?
No.
No.
Solid answers. Should net zero, Jerry, be cancelled?
It's not. Yes, no is the answer.
It's not rocket science, mate, is it? You know, it's a yes or no.
It's a no.
I can't give you that one.
No. Okay.
Niet.
I can't give you that.
No.
Yes or no? You said it's trying to be clever.
It's trying to be clever.
He thinks he can speak Russian.
I know. Well,
he talks nonsense.
He's in their pay. I mean, he ought to be able to.
Absolute rubbish, Stephen, that was. Jesus, can we get the care home on the phone, please, and get him back sharpish.
Go on.
Number 4, Stephen. Was the Labour Party right to scrap the winter fuel payment?
Yes.
No.
What a nasty... You're like a nasty Tory.
You're after a peerage, aren't you? You're not going to get...
I turned it down.
So did I. Oh.
Are we done, guys? Question number 5, Jerry. Will Donald Trump win the US election?
No.
No. Is it a memory thing?
He can't remember.
Hello.
All right, dear, don't worry.
Sorry, who are these people in my bedroom?
Yeah, you've said that before.
I bet somebody else has said it before as well.
That was a good party.
Very good party.
Jerry, should the police be armed?
No.
OK. Reasons?
Reasons because they work very well without being armed, and there's enough guns on the streets.
I agree with that. Stephen?
I mean, the police are armed where they have to be armed. And we do have firearms units. There are occasions, but the idea of somebody walking around with a Hector and K on their hip, I'm sorry, no, not in this country.
And 2-tier policing, does it exist in this country?
Well, of course it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stephen?
Sadly so.
It does seem a little bit unfair, you see. And sometimes, I think the media's got a role to play in this as well. They sometimes report, it's like a 2-tier reporting system where they'll just show you one side of the argument. I think the perfect example was a few weeks ago, but we won't go into detail on that, but they were showing clips on different incidents which weren't actually in order, which is quite naughty, Stephen, isn't it?
That's outrageous, and it's a shame we can't talk about it, because, in all honesty, there's some very, very important factors came out about that.
Absolutely right.
And will continue to do so.
Fake news in particular.
Totally fake. And, and
scary.
There's a lot we could say. Unfortunately, there's a lot we can't say.
Right, I think we've all calmed down now. The ambulance is waiting, Stephen. We'll get you back there in a jiffy.
My porridge is getting colder.
Well, you're not going to prison again, are you?
Look, we call it the care home.
Look, coming up next, we've got Nicola McLean on Last Orders.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Tom, dying to talk to you about this. Transport for London, right? They run the buses and tubes and things in London, and they've got £2.5 million. £2.5 million, which they're going to spend on what?
Diversity training. I dare say they've probably got plenty of it already.
But let me tell you something. I sit on a board of a company, and I was diversity trained recently.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, really?
And I must admit,
What was that like?
Well, I think it was like stating the bleeding obvious, right? So you sit there and you say, well, why would I do that? Or why would I treat someone like that? I wouldn't do that in the first place. I don't need to be trained in this. And you just sat there for 6 hours while people told you the obvious. But what do you think of spending that amount of money for Transport for London?
It's crazy, because on the one hand, do we need this diversity training? The TfL is an incredibly diverse workforce already. The idea that there are barriers to entry there doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. Also, as you say, these things are commonsensical, really, and to the point sometimes they can become problematic, because they're not just saying, you know, be open and tolerant of people and so on. It's actually preaching a more kind of divisive sort of rhetoric to people, which can be a big problem in the
get your
workplace.
diversity training from your boss or somebody, don't you? Somebody pulls you up and says, you don't talk to people like that. This is how you talk to them. That's it. Done.
It should be that
spend
simple.
6 hours in front of.
And I know that in the grand scheme of things, £2.5 million is kind of money down the back of the sofa. But at the same time, my local tube station just closes early on random nights of the week because of the fact that they haven't got enough staff.
4 years ago, there were 655 people at City Hall earning over £100,000 a year. People might argue that's 655 too many. There are 1,100 now. 4 years later.
1,100.
Actually, 1,142 to be precise.
The People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled. Lovely.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's Last Orders at the Bar, and I'm joined for the second time on this show by Nicola McLean. Lovely to have you back.
Thanks for having me.
Reality TV star, glamour model. I've been on Big Brother a couple of times.
Yeah.
Any other reality TV shows?
I'm a Celebrity.
I'm a Celebrity. How was that?
I loved it. I really enjoyed it, yeah.
Who was the big name on there, apart from you, obviously?
Yeah, I never say her name right, which is a real injustice, so help me. Martina Natarata.
Natarata
Yeah, I loved her.
Yeah.
Robert Kilroy Silk, who I just loved. He went out first, but I just loved him.
Yeah, Labour MP.
Yeah, I thought he was brilliant. Joe Swash won it. Yeah, so it was a good year.
OK, obviously a very glamorous lady. You look a particular way, a role model to probably thousands and thousands of young ladies out there. We spoke earlier about, you know, men complimenting women on the way they look. Sometimes they can be, you know, get scolded for it. You know, back in the day, a pretty lady like you may have walked down the street and some blokes on the building site may have wolf whistled. Is that a compliment, or is that insulting for a woman? Is it bad? Is it the wrong thing to do?
It's really hard. So bringing up teenage boys, obviously we're absolutely not, and I would be mortified if I see my boys doing it. But like of a certain generation, I feel like the cancel culture is just too much. But for me, I get embarrassed, and that's really bizarre. Seemingly, I've got double G boobs that I've pumped up myself, so not physically pumped up myself, but went and got surgery.
Not a bicycle pump.
No, I haven't pumped my foot down, absolutely not, but gone and paid for them to be bigger. So it's like I invite the attention, but then I don't actually want it. So I understand that I'm a contradiction, so I feel like we need to be gentle and educate men in how to be.
So you invite the attention, but that's your job, that's your profession, isn't it? To invite that attention, and that's how you make your living. but you want to switch off when you're walking down the street and think to yourself, I don't really want that attention.
Yeah, it's really weird. I'm actually quite shy. So, like in real life, I never wear makeup. Like it's just not my personality. So yeah, I would avoid walking past a building site because I wouldn't want that. Yeah. But I don't feel like we should be cancelling men for doing it. I feel like it's just a bit like, come on now.
Young girls, obviously, watching this show or watching your social media and stuff like that, they're looking at you. Nicola, you look a particular way, very glamorous, and they wanted to get into this game and make money. Any advice for them?
Well, the thing is, like, I don't mind OnlyFans, but it's not for me. I feel like when I did it years ago, page 3 was like really acceptable, and it was a real fine line. You know, yes, it was topless, and I completely understand for the mass that wouldn't be what they wanted to do. I was fine with it, but I feel like by cancelling page 3 and cancelling the lads mags, we've then moved on to like something that pushes young girls to do more and more and more, and I worry about that. So I'd much prefer girls to be doing page 3 than to be going on OnlyFans, because I feel like you get lured in with like OnlyFans and social media accounts because you might earn a certain amount in a month, but then those people won't pay you if you're not doing more and more and more, and I feel like people are going more down the porn route that wouldn't, so it is worrying for me.
It's quick money for these young ladies, isn't it? The OnlyFans and the porn route, very dangerous though.
Is anything quick money? That's what I was going to say. You know, it's weird because I'm really more than happy that I was a page 3 girl. I loved it, and I hate it when I see other successful page 3 girls running it down, because I feel like, come on, we had a really good time. Obviously, your experience is your experience, but I have to say that when I was 18 and doing page 3, I never thought about having an 18-year-old son, and then he's going to see it online forever, my 14-year-old, so that it comes with a lot of explanations. And I can say, do you know what? It was page 3, people go topless on a beach, and I stopped when I fell pregnant with you, which is what I did. These girls are not, maybe their explanations are going to have to be bigger because they're doing more.
So I understand, Nicola, that you also support a group that wants to protect animals, supports the well-being of animals. Do you want to tell me about that?
Yeah, so I've campaigned with Peter for many years. I'm not a vegetarian, I'm not a vegan, I understand, but I just think, like, let's do it humanely. Let's do it humanely, and some of the ways that we eat animals is inhumane.
For example?
Foie gras. So, we're pumping ducks and then their liver blows and then we eat it, and that's for me. So there's ways, the way that we chickens, so just do it kindly.
See, I always struggle with this. I struggle with this argument because I am a meat eater.
Yeah, me too.
I'm getting these funny twangs as I get older about becoming a vegetarian or eating less meat. I'm starting to think more about the animals that we're eating rather than just a piece of meat. I'm not, because I think most of us, as we grow up, we don't associate that piece of bacon or that piece of steak or beef, whatever, with an animal. We just see it as food. And then you talk quite rightly about how we treat some of our animals, but I always think I'm a bit of an hypocrite because I want to treat animals fairly, and I love my dog and treat him fairly and would do anything for him. But then I go and eat an animal, and we breed these animals to eat, and I think that's quite cruel. I do.
I mean, of course, we are all hypocrites. Exactly what I just said there. Like, I don't like people wolf whistling at me, but then I've gone and got double G boobs. It's like, absolutely. But if we're going to eat meat, we can do it in a right way. We don't need to do it inhumanely.
Okay.
We don't need to be fox hunting. We don't need to be wearing fur because they're skinned alive for the fur. That's not what we need to be doing. But yeah, I will eat chicken tonight probably, and I'm quite happy to do so. But it's the way we do it.
It is the way we do it. Right, we're on the pull as well with Nicola today. You've done this before, haven't you, Dan?
Yes.
Let's get one out. I think it's that pump there.
Okay.
And you've done this before. I know you're quite
I'm good at this. I mean, watch this.
Look at this. Natural. Got the right tilt.
It's a bit...
45... Oh,
it's going a bit fast. Yeah. Oh, God.
Oh, the speed's too much.
Oh.
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 That's it. You've got to put it on the bar.
Oh.
Can you bleep that out, please?
Sorry.
We've had,
That's not my fault there.
Oh,
my God.
I do apologise to the viewers at home. There's been some foul language on the show
That's
tonight.
not my fault. I'm not taking that. I'm not... That's their...
Stephen Pound earlier, and now we've got Nicola swearing on
their
on
gas
the show.
is too
We'll
much.
get it. What do you think to that?
No, that's rubbish. I'm really disappointed.
I think they did quite well last time when you came
yeah.
on the show.
Yeah, because their pumps were better.
Yeah, but week in, week out, Nicola, we have guests on the show who pour a much better pint than that, and they do not blame the equipment.
Well, I'm blaming him.
So what have you been up to over the past few months?
I'm being a mum at the minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, enjoying that. Summer holidays and, yeah, looking after the boys.
Yeah, I think I want to give you a 8 out of 10 for that.
I'm fuming. I'm actually fuming because I'm a competitive person.
And moving forward, I've seen, I checked your notes earlier. You've done all this stuff, all this TV, all these reality TV shows, made a bit of a name for yourself. Where do you see yourself in 10 years' time?
Oh, I'm the least, I'm competitive. I don't want that to be my point, but I'm not very ambitious.
Really?
So, no, it's really...
Come on.
I know,
Come
everyone
on.
thinks this. No one believes me, but I'm actually not ambitious. So I'm
I
competitive.
don't believe
I know,
that.
I'm
Listen,
not.
all these reality TV shows you've been on.
So I'm competitive. Once you put me on there, I want to win.
Yeah.
But I honestly, if I won the lottery, I'd never work again. I'm really happy at home.
But you must have some ambition for your children, for them to do well, surely.
Obviously, but whatever they want to do.
That's brilliant.
So, I do, whatever they want to do, they both want to become footballers. I'm very aware that's really hard, but I tell them it's possible.
I don't know, last time you came on, you spoke about your husband who was a professional footballer.
Yeah.
What's he doing with his days?
So he coaches my younger son, and he is in foot golf, which is really...
I've seen that on TV where they boot the ball into it. Like,
I hate it, but he goes away and competes for England. It's really weird. And he also has a concierge service, so he's busy. So, yeah, I'm like a 1950s housewife making pancakes and waffles.
Really?
It's fine for me,
Really?
yeah.
And what's your go-to meal when you're in the kitchen?
Oh,
Now you're tied to the kitchen.
I am. I'm actually a good cook. Tom, actually, honestly, if he has to cook, they get a takeaway. If I have to cook, he doesn't have it. I'm very good at... I make a good curry. I make a good pasta.
Yeah.
I'm a good cook.
OK, oh, Nick.
I'm a catch here. I'm selling myself.
No, well, you're already taken, but I'll try this. I think I give you 8 out of 10 or 7 or 8 out of 10.
8. Yeah, no, don't lower it.
Cheers. That's On the Pole with Nicola McLean. Thanks for watching Lee Anderson's Real World. Another great show, a bunch of cracking guests, more of the same next week. But coming up next, we've got Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening. Here's your GB News weather from the Met Office. It is going to be relatively warm, not as hot as it has been, but warm and sunny at times through much of this weekend, though there will be some rain pushing through. Initially, we have a front making its way southeastwards through this evening and overnight. That's already brought quite a bit of rain across Scotland and Northern Ireland, but it's now clearing these areas, and so here it is going to turn mostly dry overnight with some clear skies. For England and Wales, though, turning increasingly cloudy, and there will be some outbreaks of rain around. Where we have the cloud, temperatures aren't going to drop much. Another warm night to come, but quite a bit fresher across Scotland and Northern Ireland, dropping into single figures, particularly in more rural spots. But first thing tomorrow, across many parts of England and Wales, it is going to be a bit grey initially. There will be some outbreaks of rain around, and worth bearing in mind, some of the rain could be a little bit heavy at times. A bit brighter first thing across North Wales and much of northern England, though some cloud here and there. A brighter start for Scotland and Northern Ireland, just a couple of showers starting to feed their way in from the west as we go through the morning. Eastern Scotland getting off to a lovely fine start to the day with plenty of sunshine here. Those showers, though, across western parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland will become more widespread here as we go through the afternoon, and some heavy ones are quite likely. Meanwhile, across the southern southeastern parts of England, here we will have some bursts of rain through the day, and these could be heavy at times before they clear away later. Elsewhere, a good deal of dry, bright and sunny weather, and with temperatures, albeit not as high as they have been, getting into the mid-20s, it will feel warm in any sunshine. Sunday should get off to a fairly fine start, albeit a fresher start than of late for many of us, before some wetter weather starts to push its way in from the northwest, and this is likely to bring some heavy rain as we go into the beginning of next week, so do watch out for some high rainfall totals, particularly across northern and western parts. I'll see you.
You really could become the next big Great British Giveaway winner with your chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. Listen to what some of our previous winners have to say about winning big with us.
On the day that I got the money in the bank account, everything just seemed a lot sunnier.
But I do have something to spend it on.
Just go for it. It's an absolute must.
Thank you, GB News.
Amazing feeling to win.
For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2 or post your name and number to GB07 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates.
You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday,
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
I'm Patrick Christys. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,